Hello, friends and followers. Well, my brother, kind guy that he is, sent me a Clipperton L amplifier. He had this thing for a while, and we got him a no-tune amplifier, so he wasn't using this amplifier, and I thought, well, maybe I should try to fix it. And so he sent it to me, and I'll give it a go. It made it. He packed it pretty well in this big box over here. Box really didn't suffer any damage. It probably wasn't quite thick enough, but we got lucky. The amp made it. It didn't get damaged at all, so I'm really happy about that. Thank you, Alex, for packing it so well. Anyway, I took the covers off it to see what's going on in here, and my brother kindly sent me some tubes also for this thing. I haven't gotten the tubes out yet, but the story of this amplifier is my brother was trying to get some decent power out of it, and he put some tubes in it, and from there things kind of went funky. So anyway, when you get something that you don't really know what you have, you just want to kind of go through it and look for things that are either loose or misconfigured. And so when you look at this amplifier right away, you say, what's out of place? And you notice this capacitor here is kind of bent. So that involves some investigation. And this little choke here and the wiring is kind of hanging in place, hanging around. So that needs fixed. And they don't make it easy. I think my brother was trying to change the tubes in this thing. The tubes all go here. And they don't really give you much room to work in here. I also noticed that this configuration of wires had the first two were touching, and that would cause some issues. So I was able to bend one of these up a little bit, but it would be easy to kind of just put your elbow here when you're working on this thing, and those get pushed down or something. So that's something else to look for in these Dentrons. Anyway, seems like it's built well. That coil form seems like it's cardboard or something. It's some type of wood. It's wound pretty well here. Yeah, this little conglomeration of wires could be a little hazardous, so you want to make sure you have some caps here. They probably should have put some insulation on those wires. But anyway, yeah, inside of a Dentron Clipperton L here. Transformer looks decent. It's not rusted. So I'm guessing the guy, my brother bought this from some guy in Texas. I guess he replaced the capacitors or something. It was supposedly redone. There's not much in here to redo though. I mean, yeah, you could replace the capacitors and the wiring. There's not much else in here really to even mess with. It's pretty simple. So one bad thing about this amplifier, from what I've read, and my brother experienced it, is the input to the amplifier is not tuned. So they use a bunch of 50 ohm swamping resistors. They call it swamping as you're trying to enforce 50 ohms in. And I think at least my brother found that the SWR was high going into this amplifier, and they say you should run an antenna tuner into it, which seems kind of ridiculous to me, but that's the story. So I haven't tried to do that yet. I think what I'll do is, this section here has some resistors that probably act as fuses. So I'm going to try and get those fixed. And there's a little post that we got to reinstall here, a little ceramic post. get that thing back in there and then see how this thing goes. Looks like a little fan goes real nice there. So when you get an amplifier, you just want to make sure that everything turns well. Make sure your switches aren't flamed out from abuse. And just make sure that these capacitors are not scraping and turn nicely. Then you probably got something to work with. Of course, this switch here could be flamed out from somebody turning it when the amplifier is turned on. So you want to make sure that none of these are flamed out. And if that's the case, then you're probably good to start working on the amplifier. Here's the TR relay. Make sure that's not too flamed out. And there's not much under here. I did take the bottom off because there was something rattling around, and I found a screw loose in here rattling around. So what are these down here then? Are these the swamping? Well, that doesn't look too good, does it? So what the heck? Anyway, you just want to go through this whole thing and make sure that things are copacetic before you fire this thing up. And oh yeah, so it looks like the guy that had this replaced a bunch of capacitors. He did a good job. He put lots of strange wiring on here. Like it looks like he replaced a lot of traces with wiring, which is fine. You just want to make sure that he did a good job and everything is good to go. I want to get that one capacitor lowered down. There's where the transformer bolts on. And so, how does this thing work then? Okay, there's the wiring for the transformer for getting it to the proper input voltage. Relay. RFN. So RFN's at the bottom one. Let's see how that looks. If we can look in there. RF in goes into the relay. I just wanted to see the swamping resistors if I can see them. They got some kind of little matching transformer thing down here. That's all I see. Anyway, I'll try and fix up the high voltage and get this thing going. So the high voltage comes in from here. Thin little wire too. Just goes up through here, tiny little grommet for feeding the plates and the tubes. And you can see where there were two resistors on there. And those were sandwiched in between an insulator, and then the other end of the resistors are going to feed to this thing here, which feeds the bottom of this tower. So I need to find the correct resistors here, or resistor. This must also be a network which will reduce some RFI. This probably grounds to the bottom. It would ground, I would think, somewhere. I gotta look at an amp that's put together and see how this all goes. Anyway, I gotta look at the schematic and get those resistors figured out. And give it a go. My brother kindly gave me 4 tubes too, which he bought from RF Parts, which was really nice of him. So I'm guessing that one of the tubes he had in the past, before he bought new tubes, probably had a short. And that short would probably burn up these resistors. So he had some bad luck. And I wonder if this thing would short. I don't think if these two were shorted, it wouldn't matter at all. As far as burning up, I think the only thing that's going to burn up these resistors is going to be a shorted tube. And you got 4 of them in there, so that's the more likelihood to have a short. So I'm guessing this power supply board's original. I don't think there's a Harbach board for this thing, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I'm going to correct that one capacitor there. Get it looking straight. And I suppose we'll see if this thing goes. See what it does. The next thing I want to do is take the tubes out of their packing box and inspect them for shorts. I'm just going to use an ohm meter and go from the plate to the grids in the cathode, make sure the tubes aren't shorted, and maybe put some physical stress on them, like just kind of whack them around, see if they don't short. If they don't, fix all this up, put the tubes in here, and see if this amp will go. And do it carefully and not get shocked. All right, well, that's the video. And I'll thank my brother for the amplifier and sending it safely. Here it is. Thanks again.